This is a Let's Talk Church Safety and Security microsode with your host, Paul Buckner. So, I'm going to be starting a series of microsodes talking about doing security for events. And so, it's nice to have my car back. Reunited. Anyway, so nice to have my car back. Loving every minute of that. And it gives me a much quieter space than my Tahoe, which I get a lot more road noise in, to record these so you can at least have a better understanding of them. And of course, as you know, I spend an inordinate amount of time on the road. So it allows me to have these conversations. And so one of the things I want to talk about was there was an event back in Maine, I believe, a couple of years ago now. It was right as like COVID was hitting everything. What had happened was there was a high-speed chase, as I recollect the story, and the guy decided to drive high as a kite, completely naked, down into where a church was having a drive-in Sunday service. And so when this happened, and the guy drives down into the parking lot, as this happens, he jumps out naked as a jaybird, and he 1050s. His vehicle wrecks. That's a police 10 code 1050s into a parked vehicle. They had set a barrier of parked vehicles. This is very smart to keep people from having an accident. It literally kept his vehicle from rolling potentially into the crowd. And at that point, it was a fantastic protection. And I don't think it did a lot of damage to the vehicle from what I heard, to the vehicle it hit. The guy jumps out and runs into the church. And the thing that they did that I think was very, very wise was they created a minimum safe distance and they kept people back. The security team took a look at this, and actually one of the funny things was there was a gal up on stage, and she showed a lot of wisdom. She looked over, had the microphone in her hand, realized that there was something very wrong with this situation. She tossed the mic and she was gone. Non-combatants need to move away from the situation. And what they did was the guy ran into their sanctuary and was like flipping stuff over, and he was raging and out of control. You can replace those things. You cannot replace those people. And I can tell you, there are officers whose careers have been ended from fighting somebody who's that high. Create a minimum safe distance. This is why we have tasers and all kinds of things that are not always effective, but it's a great start to present a less than lethal means of defense or apprehension. Let that create that minimum safe distance. And the guy actually collapsed, and as I recall the story, he actually coded. He died, and they had to Narcan him back. And so where I'm going with this is two things from this story. Number one, have vehicle-based cordons for your major events. If you're having a outdoor anything, some kind of a Halloween alternative like a trunk or treat, if you're having a 4th of July celebration, if you're doing a special dinner, use vehicles parked far enough apart that you could drive out if you needed them to, but nothing is going to get through this side of a moped or a dirt bike, and create that environment. If those volunteers are going to be there the whole time and there's no way they might have to leave due to an emergency, which is very possible, then park them right up against each other quite nearly. That is a phenomenal barrier, and that barrier comes with insurance, vehicle insurance. Something to think about. So creating those barriers, that's the gist of this first video. But over to the second, if you have some kind of an incident, you need to be planning to get non-combatants away. You may have members of your team that they are unarmed, or people that you can draw on that are ushers, something to talk to them about. If you cross-train with those folks and you're able to build that kind of a respect and a camaraderie, build a relationship with that team, one of the things that you're able to do is to say, hey, when there's an emergency, you guys are used to ushering people in, and during a fire emergency, you're going to be ushering people out. If there's something that we've got to create a minimum safe distance, if you would help us to usher people away from it so that we can focus on whatever the threat is. And because you just never know in an environment like that, sometimes the wisest thing to do is to create a cordon. And imagine somebody has, God forbid, but they've doused themselves in some kind of an accelerant. It's not hard to get a hold of fuel. It's expensive right now, but it's not hard to get a hold of fuel and a lighter. They've aerosolized that thing and it's all over them. And that is a thing that you see a lot in foreign countries that you don't see here a lot. But imagine in an environment like that, just getting back and away from that person enough to let the authorities get there. And because there's things that are not going to be safe for somebody doused in some type of a volatile accelerant. Tasers are not going to work. You really don't want to be discharging firearms close to them. There's a lot of things like that you don't want to be dealing with. So, food for thought. This is the first increment of my series I'm going to be doing, talking about having outdoor events at your church. If you enjoyed this microsode, check out the video and audio versions of the Let's Talk Church Safety and Security podcast.